We can now speak to economist and CEO of Meyer Resources, Cornelia Meyer. Always great to have you on the show, Cornelia. Before we get into the jet fuel, I want to ask you about all the breaking news that we've had today. There's been a deluge of it. Iran's foreign minister declares the Strait of Hormuz is completely open for the rest of the ceasefire. We must remember that does end on Tuesday. Trump says the US blockade will remain in place. We see oil and gas prices tumbling on the news, but the reality is it's going to take time for the economy to bounce back.
Oh, yes. So nice to be on with you again, Leanne. Thank you for having me. Oh, yes, it will take time. And as much as I love the optimism and enthusiasm of oil markets, if I have a tanker with 200 million barrels, if I have a tanker with a you might have a large cargo and a ship that's 300 million worth. I will need to first know what my insurance will cover. And until I know that, then that's not going to happen overnight. I am not going to pass undertake that iffy journey.
So that's really interesting because the Danish shipping group, Maersk, just actually released a statement earlier and said it's to assess the transport of Strait of Hormuz following Iran's announcement. So clearly these companies are still nervous to go through the Strait of Hormuz because the details do not appear to be completely clear of what's safe and what's not.
Yes, and if you lose a ship, you lose several 100 million of cargo and then also there is a backlog in getting the next ship, in manufacturing the next ship. So it's not that easy. It's just not that easy. And we do need that strait opened. And I think we need it back as an international waterway.
And it's really interesting because you said oil markets are optimistic. I must say Wall Street indexes pretty optimistic too. They really rallying after Iran says the Strait of Hormuz is completely open. Markets appear to be pricing in peace right now. But what risks remain ahead of possible peace talks between the US and Iran?
Well, they are pricing in peace. You're absolutely right. But what is the way there may not be that easy and not that straightforward. Let us not forget when we had the JCPOA last time around in 2015, that took years to negotiate. So I'm very critical of having lasting agreements negotiated in just a few days.
And is the International Energy Agency's warning about Europe having only 6 weeks of jet fuel actually realistic, Cornelia, or is this just a worst-case scenario estimate?
It's realistic. It's very realistic. And most of the jet fuel that's used in Europe comes from the other side of Hormuz. Some of it comes from Asia. And they don't get the crude, so they can't put the crude through their refineries, so it's not going to come from there yet. The new Dangote refinery, just before the war got up to capacity, is making hay now, and they're sending some jet fuel to Europe. But it's really it's a dicey situation, and we see the EU Energy Commissioner, looking at assessing. And the EU is assessing what the refinery throughput can be and how they can alleviate the situation. They will also have to look in terms of strategic reserves, because unlike the US, where the strategic reserves are only crude, in Europe they're crude and product. So we may, once we get on the other side of this conflict, have to up a little bit what we have in strategic reserves in terms of jet fuel.
And European airlines such as EasyJet and KLM are just some of the airlines we're seeing who are experiencing additional fuel costs. And this is all due to the Iran war. But Cornelia, what impact is that having on consumers like you and me who wish to get flights around the world?
Well, we're going to pay a lot more money. We may have to sort of go in the street and sing for our flight. But it's going to be more expensive. But mind you, some of the airlines are locked in because they have hedged. And so they're locked in. So we are fine for a few. We are fine for a few. They are fine for a few months. But after that, they're no longer fine.
So we're in a really dire situation right now. How important do you think it is that these upcoming talks that could possibly happen in Pakistan between the US and Iran are fruitful? Because the clock is ticking down on the ceasefire. Like I said, it's just Tuesday and something solid needs to happen.
Oh, absolutely. And we need, if at all, to extend the ceasefire, and we need that street opened, or that strait opened, because it's not just oil, it's not just gas. You know, it's fertilizer. And that is what concerns me most, because if I look at the developing world, we have a pretty bad situation in terms of food security already, and that could get even worse. So we could deal with real hunger, and that's not a good place to be in. And I would like to sort of refer you to the IMF World Bank spring meetings that just took place this week. And the IMF has revised its world economic outlook, and there's been some quite hefty downward revisions there.
Well, let's go and get on expensive flights, Cornelia Meyer. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much. See you soon. Bye-bye.